Hi, everybody. Once again, my name is Wesley Schuler. I'm the financial advisor here for California Coast Financial Services. I am an investment advisor as well as an insurance agent. I'm happy to talk to you guys about this retirement subject today. I know that where the market's at right now, there can be a lot of intimidation and a lot of uncertainty with retirement. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so you can see what we're going to talk about today. All right, and Tara Lynn, let me know if you can see everything all right.
Yes. Cool.
Perfect. All right, the home stretch, 7 things we need to do in the decade before you retire. So retirement can feel a lot like a race, right? When we're at the beginning of the race, we think to ourselves, okay, we're feeling pretty good. We've got energy. We've got a long ways before we really have to start stressing out about the finish line. So when we get closer to the finish line, everything really starts to ramp up. It becomes a little bit more of a stressful scenario where we're wondering to ourselves, okay, are we going to have the income that we have now? Are we going to be able to have enough income to provide in the future with rising living costs and things of that nature? So it can feel a little bit like a race where we feel towards the end that maybe we didn't run hard enough in the beginning of the race, or maybe we were running a different type of race than we thought we were supposed to be running. And, things don't always work out the way we want them to. But in the decade before retire, there's 7 things you can do to better protect yourself for when this end of the race comes, and that you make sure you feel that you've done everything you can for yourself and your family. So 7 things. First thing is determine when the time is right. So the time's not the same for everybody, right? If someone has a specific scenario where they might feel to themselves, oh, I think I can retire at 55. Well, there's people that could be in the exact same shoes financially, but maybe have a different family situation or have a different medical history. And that time can be different for every single person. Everyone's unique. But once you figure out what time you think is the best for you to retire, we want to take aim at that retirement target. We want to make sure, okay, this is what I'm going to do. How am I going to do it? We want to maximize that nest egg. Everyone has an amount that they think that they need for retirement, right? And then there's always going to be financial advisors that will try to tell you how much you're going to need. When we find out what that amount is for that specific person, we want to try and maximize that, because everyone wants to be able to live more comfortably than they thought they were able to, right? So that's an important part. Getting a portfolio checkup, right? So this part's important because once we set a plan in place and we start to execute that plan, markets change, things change, the world changes, right? So we want to make sure that our portfolio is on track. We're still on track to hit our goals, and that we're working with someone to make sure that every option that's out there for us, we're taking advantage of it, and that all the portfolios that we have in different places or in one place, they're all acting together in unison to reach our goals. So creating a Social Security strategy, there's a lot of myths out there with Social Security. There's a lot of uncertainties with Social Security, and not everyone knows exactly how much they're going to get and how it plays a part in their retirement plan. So that's a very important part as well. And building a retirement income stream. Having multiple streams is very important. I'm sure some of you have heard of the 3-legged stool of retirement. It's definitely changing nowadays, but we're going to talk about that a little bit as well and figure out how we're able to get those streams of income that we're looking for. And then the last part is we're looking beyond the money, right? We're not here to just have money just to have it, right? We want to be able to use it. We want to be able to do the things we want to do. Retirement's a really big part of our life that we look at and say, okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But there's time in retirement for you to do the things that you want to do and accomplish things that maybe you didn't have time to do before when you were in your work life, right? So those are all things that we want to look at before retirement to ensure that we're going to experience the success that we want and that we're comfortable and that we can enjoy the latter years of our lives. So determining when the time is right. Who is this guy? So this is Otto von Bismarck. He was a chancellor in Germany in the 1800s. He is credited with being the founder of retirement. So essentially what he did was when he was running for an office, against his political opponents, he essentially said, hey, we're going to put something on the table to benefit our citizens in a way that we haven't experienced before. And they created what they call the retirement age. Now, the retirement age he placed at 70, but there was a bit of a problem with this, as most people at the time, the life expectancy was between 40 and 50. So a lot of people weren't getting to experience the benefits that he had put in place. So strike one, we struck out on this one, but you can see in 1930s, we took another crack at it with Social Security. So the retirement age is just still about the same, but our life expectancy is a lot higher. So now the problem that we're experiencing is that people are retiring at the age that we were supposed to, but the life expectancy's improved because of modern medicine and things like that. So, you know, it's still something we're working on and we're combating to try and make sure that everyone's able to retire at the time they want to with the money that they have. So when do you think you're going to retire? Morningstar did a very interesting report on people and when they thought they were going to retire and then when they actually did. So for the people that said they were going to retire at age 55, they actually ended up retiring at 58 for the most part, and they experienced some difficulties. The cost of Medicare, right? When Medicare doesn't kick in until 65, there's some years that we may have to put money on the table for medical expenses. Maybe the nest egg wasn't big enough. By retiring a little bit earlier, we may not be able to have the money and the income that we need for retirement. The expenses were higher than anticipated. Living costs are going up. We're all experiencing that right now. We see inflation. We go to the gas pump and we see how much it is. You go to the gas station, you get a water bottle and you see how much more it cost than what it did 3 years ago. These are all problems that you might experience if we retire too early. On the flip side, for retiring 65, we see that a lot of people are actually retiring at 63 when they plan on retiring at 65. This might be through poor health, unemployment. Not all of us are able to stop working when we want to stop working. Some of us have to keep working to make the income that we need for retirement. And some of us are forced to stop working before we want to, whether it's a medical reason, or maybe it's because of a family scenario where we need to be home and we're not able to work. So meeting the goals early, it's definitely a possibility, but we want to be able to understand what other consequences there might be from retiring early. And maybe we're planning on retiring too late as well. Generally, we see that retirement age is 61, and we can see that the vast majority of the people are retiring around that age. So here's some important ages since we're talking about those milestones. Age 50 is the first year we can start putting in catch-up to our IRA. So what does that mean? We know that we can put roughly $6,000 in a retirement account every year in an IRA. At age 50, that actually increases. So we can put in an extra $1,000. It lets us save more money for retirement. Once again, if we felt like we weren't running that race hard enough in our earlier years, and maybe it's for very understandable reasons, but this gives us a chance to catch up. So age 55, we're able to start taking some distributions from the 401ks, from company sponsored plans. 59.5 is that full retirement age where those early withdrawal penalties go away. So we have widow Social Security eligibility at 60 and the early Social Security benefits is 62. This is something we'll touch on a little bit later, signing up for Medicare and what the best strategies are for that, because that can also play a really big point in your retirement plan. 66 to 67 is the full Social Security retirement age, but we'll see that if we wait to take Social Security, the benefits can compound so that we're able to get more money and that we're replacing a little bit less of our income. We're taking an aim at retirement date. So rule of thumb one, we want to save enough here to generate 70 to 90% of your pre-retirement income. So 70 to 90% might look like if you're making $100,000, it could be, okay, we want to be able to have $70,000 to $90,000 a year in income to supplement the income that we weren't having before. We'll get other things like Social Security to make up those parts, but looking at the costs that might go down, we have mortgage, we might be done paying off a mortgage. We may not need to go to work anymore, so we may have less transportation costs. Clothing costs may come down and food costs might come down. Costs that will go up, healthcare, traveling. So when we get into retirement, a lot of us want to go places we weren't able to go before when we were working, visit family that we weren't able to see when we were working. Travel costs can go up, utility costs can go up, and home maintenance can go up. These are all things that want to make us think to ourselves, okay, do we have enough money to cover our costs in the future if they start to continue to rise? Costs that go away, Social Security taxes, we don't have to worry about that anymore, and the costs for retirement. So when we talk about paying for retirement, we might still be paying a financial advisor or fees for a 401k to provide us that income, but we're not necessarily putting money into retirement to prepare because we're already there. 70-90% of that pre-retirement income is ideal. So rule number 2, we want to save a multiple of your salary based off your age. We can see this, we talked about this before. If it's $100,000 salary, we want to have a good multiple of that in retirement. So that might be $500,000 to $600,000 at age 55 if we're making $100,000 a year, right? And then we want to be a little bit easier on ourselves when we're younger. When we get a little bit older, that finish line starts coming a lot closer. And we want to say to ourselves, okay, we want to make sure that we have the income that we're going to need. And we need to make sure that we have the assets for retirement that we're going to need. This is a good guidance, a good guideline for us to see how much we're going to need and make sure that we're getting that income. So rule number 3, we want to save enough to generate a 4% withdrawal rate. There's a lot of studies that are done on how much we need to be pulling from retirement, and it varies from person to person. So this could be very unique for each individual. 4% is not necessarily a number that you need to say to yourself, hey, I need to get 4%. It can vary, right? But this is just a rule of thumb. If we want to get $25,000 of income annually with a 1.5% return, so this might be your bank CDs, this might be the checking and savings accounts, the money markets of the world, we're going to get that lower return. This is how much money we need to have to generate that $25,000 return with a 1.5% return. We can see it go up, right? But if we look at our other options in retirement, other products out there, instead of just having it sit in the bank IRA, we could potentially need a lot less money with generating a better return. We get the same outcome, right? So these are all things we want to think about. Are we putting ourselves in the right position to get ourselves the income? So the third step here is we want to maximize our nest egg. So we talked about those things that we can put our money into to get us a better return so that we have more annual income, right? But how do we get to that amount? What if we say to ourselves, okay, well, that 1.5% income, that's just what I feel comfortable with. And that's okay. We may not be able to get the income from that, but we want to make sure that we have the amount in that account so that when we do get that 1.5% return, it's still getting us the income we need. So we need to grow those accounts. And how do we do that, right? So there's a couple of different ways we can save. These are for our employer sponsored plans, right? So these are going to be the plans that your company puts together for you. These plans can be expensive for your company and they pay for it. You might see a small annual admin fee in these accounts, but generally speaking, they can be very cheap to run. And we can put about $19,500 in a 401k, 403b, a 457 plan. For those of you unfamiliar, 401k is going to be for a corporation. 403b is going to be for more of those nonprofits or school districts, for example. 457 are government plans. Simple IRAs and simple 401ks, those are for small businesses, and so are SEP IRAs. Now, if you're a small business owner, it might be a good idea to look at some of these options. If you have employees, there might be benefits that you can provide them while still saving for your retirement. And then being a small business owner, Americans, we like small business owners, right? They're some of the foundation of our country. We're letting them put in a lot of money into those accounts. So if you're a small business owner, these are options we might want to look at. So these are just some examples here. This is a couple here, age 50. So let's say we have a hypothetical couple looking to maximize their nest egg. Let's say he's an engineer, and we're going to say she's a retired teacher who does volunteer work, and together they make $150,000, right? When it comes to saving for retirement, one of the most common ways to do this is through the workplace 401k plan, but we have other options too. We've got the catch up there, we've got IRAs, right? So if you have a 401k and you say to yourself, well, I really wasn't running hard enough when I was in the beginning of the race, or maybe there were some things that came up and I wasn't able to save the money that I needed to save in my early years so that I have the income from retirement that I need. You still have some other options. You can contribute potentially to an IRA and a 401k at the same time, right? So here we see some limits, right? If we're making under this amount here and we have a 401k, we may also be able to contribute to a traditional IRA. And we also have Roth IRA options that we have, different tax strategies. We can go over the differences of the two. If you have questions about these, I'm happy to talk to you about them. Ultimately, what we're saying here is, are we going to pay the taxes now, or are we going to pay the taxes later? And there's different benefits depending on what your income situation might look like when you get to retirement. Talk about those catch-up contributions for IRAs. So we can talk about how it saves up. So if we were to take advantage, like that couple was, of the traditional IRA as well as their 401k plans, you can sock away a lot of money for retirement. Over 15 years, gaining a 6% return, we can really see compound results, right? And this is off a 15-year period, off that $44,000 amount, earning at that interest rate. So getting a portfolio checkup. Once you set up your plan and we say to ourselves, okay, I like this plan. We've got this amount of money. It's going to grow to this. And I think that we have a reasonable chance of meeting our goals, right? And we're going to talk to an advisor about that. But when are we going to talk to an advisor about our goal? When are we going to check up on it, make sure it's still working for us, right? That could be once a month. It could be once a year, right? Depending on what your situation looks like. So it's important to get portfolio checkups. Make sure your plan is still working the way you want it to. Make sure that you're on track. The average worker switches jobs 12 times, right? And of those jobs, 71% of them offer 401k plans. And 69% of those have automatic enrollment, which make it really easy to start. So if you're saying to yourself, okay, gosh, Wes, I like that I have the opportunity to build a plan, and I like that there's other options there to get me more money than what I was really getting before, but I don't know where to start. Or maybe I have these accounts out there and I just don't know anything about them, right? So when we talk about these accounts, you might not have looked at some of those accounts for a really long time, or maybe you're starting one and you just don't know how to invest in those accounts, right? Some of those accounts might be managed by your employer. Some of them might have you choose the investments, right? And as you choose those investments, if you don't do a portfolio checkup and make sure that your asset allocation is designed to meet your goal, then you might not reach your goal because your accounts are not in sync. Let's say you work for a company when you're 20, right? And we say to ourselves, okay, we're done working for them. I'm going to go work for a new company. And you start using that 401k. Do that a handful more times, right? And you might have 2 or 3, 4 IRAs out there or 401ks out there from your old company plans. And if we're not doing a portfolio checkup on all of them, then your goal could very much be out of sync. We might have a stock bond allocation that's not what we want, right? We can kind of see previous job 1, it might be in all stocks. Previous job 2 might be in more bonds. And we can see the overall retirement plan allocation could be in a lot more stocks than we would like. So that's a potential, scenario that we need to look out for when we have all those different retirement accounts. It might be a good idea to talk to a financial advisor and talk about consolidating those accounts into one spot. And you've heard of a rollover before, potentially. A lot of times advisors will say to their clients, hey, it might make sense to consolidate these accounts because we have this goal that we're trying to meet, right? And it makes a lot more sense if we're able to see this goal in one spot and we're able to make sure that those funds are all working congruently together to meet that goal. It's a little bit less of a headache when you need to take the money out of the accounts too, you want to think to yourself, do I want to be taking the money out of one account, or do I want to be taking bits and pieces out of 3, 4, 5 different accounts, right? That can be a bit of a headache. So that's another reason to think about consolidating and talking to an advisor about your employer-sponsored plans. We can talk about the stock allocation a little bit more. We have $900,000 in an account. Let's say we're trying to get to our $1 million goal, right? An 8% return assumption would tell us that, hey, we can get there pretty quickly. A couple years to retirement, not a problem. But if we're in too much stocks, right, we can never guarantee an 8% return because we don't have the crystal ball. We don't know what the market's going to do. We can look at indicators in history and statistics to figure out what the more likely scenario might be, but we can never promise or guarantee anything. That being said, stocks can take a dive. And if we're in mostly stocks or 100% stocks, we can see how this can really mess up our retirement plans. Now, if we're in a portfolio that's 50 stocks, 50 bonds, a more of a balanced approach, we might be in a better position if the market takes a downturn. Now, if we take one more step here and we say, okay, when the market starts to rebound, how quickly are we able to try and reach our goal? If we're in stocks, it might take us a while to rebound. If we're in that more diversified portfolio, more customized to you based off your age and your retirement goal, we can reach our goal in a lot quicker time than we would if we just put it all in stocks and we're essentially gambling to try and make a little bit more money. This approach that we look at here, diversifying the portfolio, we do it for a reason. And because it gives us a little bit less waves to ride when the market's going up and down. It allows us to predict the amount that we need for retirement and help us get us there a little bit easier. So here we are. What happens if we sell at the market? If we have a 50-50 stock portfolio, market goes down and we say, okay, even though we weren't in all stocks, we still lost a little bit of money. Our portfolio is down a little bit in value and we're not okay with that. We don't like that volatility. We want to get out. A lot of people have that thought process, right? It's an emotional thought process because if we look what happens, we can see putting it into something more conservative, we're not able to get back to our goal here, right? And we can see if we stayed in the stocks and bond portfolio, we were able to get back to our goal. But if we decided to jump out of the market, stay in a conservative investment, we can see the negative effects. While the money is growing, we're not able to reach the retirement date that we wanted to, right? So that's important to think about. When we are updating our beneficiaries, this is an important thing to think about. A lot of us are putting together trusts and wills to make sure that our assets are delivered, importantly, to the people that we want them to, right? So when we talk about trust accounts, there's a lot of work that goes into those. IRAs are a whole lot easier, and they actually override those trusts. So if you have a trust that has most of your assets in it, and then you also have an IRA, if you have that IRA and something were to happen to you, you were to pass, your beneficiary that you designate for your IRA with your financial advisor or with your 401k company, that trumps whatever the trust or whatever happens in probate or court. So it's important to think about that when we're listing our beneficiaries on our account. When we have those portfolio checkups, we want to make sure our beneficiaries the right people on our accounts. This is exactly what I want. It is important to look at that. Okay, let's see here. All right, I'm going to stop here and take a quick second to see if anyone has any questions before we move on to the next section.
Go ahead and type that into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen on the Zoom if you have any questions. All right, looks like we don't have any questions yet. You're doing a great job, Wes, answering all the questions as we go.
All right.
Oh, I have another one. So we have someone asking what to do when both stocks and bonds tank.
That's a great question. And I can definitely understand how when that happens, it can be a really intimidating moment. We realize, hey, we did what we were supposed to do and have a more diversified portfolio, and we still lost money, right? What we want to look at is our goal. We want to think, what's the goal and how long to that goal, how long till we're going to reach that goal. If we're in a position where the market downturn in a 50-50 portfolio makes it so we can't reach our goal in time, selling out of the market might only make it harder for you to reach that goal. As we saw here, you can go back here, 50-50 stock and bonds portfolios, it might make more sense to reevaluate our retirement goal, because sticking to the retirement goal and changing our retirement portfolio might have some different effects. So we look here, 50-50 stock bond portfolio, if it goes down and we sell, and we change the investment plan, we might not be able to reach our financial goal. So if you are at the position where your portfolio is down and you want to make a change because you feel like whatever you were doing before wasn't working, we need to evaluate the goal and how much time we have to reach that goal, because it's different for everybody, right? It's tough to say, if you should hop out of a market without knowing all the little details about your personal situation. I strongly advise when that happens that you don't make necessarily a emotional decision. It's important to talk to financial advisors. They care about you. Believe it or not, they want you to retire, right? And they're going to do what's best for you. They're going to give you the guidance and the advice that maybe you don't want to hear, and maybe the advice that you had never heard before. So there's always options out there that you might not be aware of, and it's always important to talk to an advisor. That's why those portfolio checkups are really important as well. They give your advisor a chance to look at your situation, understand where the market's at, and think of ways we can try and help you.
So we have a couple other questions coming in, and some of these ones we are going to wait towards the end, make sure we get all the information out to you. I'm going to give you one. Could you explain the backdoor Roth conversion tactic, steps for those individuals who make too much income to directly contribute to the Roth? That's going back to that slide that you had on the income limits for contributing. So what are some of those tactics and steps?
That's a great question. And before I answer that, I want to say that it's really important to talk to a tax advisor when we're doing those, right? Because there might be situations that we are not aware of that if we were to do a Roth conversion, it might affect you negatively. So it's important to talk to a tax advisor. That being said, the Roth backdoor is a way for us to take money that we put in a traditional IRA or a 401k, money that we haven't paid taxes on. We're going to tell the government, okay, we're going to pay taxes on this money. We're going to convert it to a Roth. And that allows us to essentially grow the money tax-free if we're able to hold the money in the account for 5 years, in the Roth for 5 years, and we wait till we're over 59 and a half. If we meet both of those requirements, the money generally comes out tax-free. Now, that's not necessarily something that's best for everyone. It's really important to talk to a tax advisor. A financial advisor is someone that can execute that for you, and we're happy to talk to you about the differences, but it really is a specific scenario question. I'm sorry to kind of go back to that again. That's why it is important to talk to a financial advisor, because they're going to tell you, hey, you might be able to learn how to do this on the internet and you can do it yourself, but you might not want to, or you might want to. And those questions are best answered by a tax advisor.
So one more specific question. If I understand correctly, I can have a Roth IRA on top of my 401k, even if I contribute the maximum amount in my 401k.
Correct. So what you'll want to do is you want to think about our income limits first, if we can contribute to a Roth. If we can contribute to a Roth, yes, you can do the $19,500 for your 401k or more if you're over 50. And then you can also do the additional $6,000 for the Roth. It is important to talk to a tax advisor if you're not sure if you're meeting those income limits or if that's the right thing to do for you. But ultimately, you can. You do have the option to do both accounts.
Wonderful. We have other questions, but we're going to continue with the presentation and we'll hold those questions to the end.
All right. Moving forward here, creating a Social Security strategy. All right. So one myth that seems to be really common is that Social Security is not going to be there when you retire. And let's look at why that's not very likely. So since the early 1980s, total Social Security revenues have been greater than the benefits paid out. Let's see. A surplus, often referred to as a Social Security trust fund, is built up over the years and totaled nearly $2.9 trillion at the end of 2020. So, however, in 2021, it is projected that Social Security will be running a deficit as the total revenues are estimated to be less than the benefits promised. And this trend is expected to accelerate in the 2020s as more baby boomers retire. So to make up for future deficits here, the Social Security is going to start drawing from the trust to pay the full benefits as promised. But current estimates predict that the surplus will only last until 2034, right? So since sensationalist headlines often mischaracterize this as the end of Social Security, this is not necessarily the time to panic. So we can talk about, this doesn't really mean that Social Security is bankrupt either. Even with the surplus depleted, Social Security will still collect payroll taxes from workers and employments. And the latest estimates show that these tax collections will allow Social Security to continue paying about 78% of the promised benefits. Of course, a 22% cut in benefits might be hard to swallow. It doesn't really mean that Social Security is going to go away. So fortunately, there are many possible solutions to fix Social Security, and one option is to make up the gap and increase payroll taxes by an estimated 3.54% split between employees and employers. So while this continues to be a really hot topic, we may not see any action from the government until it becomes a crisis. And there are options that can keep Social Security funded well into the future. It's important to understand the basics of how Social Security works so you can maximize this program for your situation. And you want to understand what your full retirement age is. All right, so here's a little bit of a illustration here to show your year of birth, when your full retirement age is. You're getting paid to wait with Social Security. And this is something that I talk about with clients regularly. When we're looking to take Social Security, do we need it? Or do we want it? And again, a tough pill to swallow, but if we wait to take our retirement benefits, our Social Security benefits, we can see that it actually increases roughly 8% every year if we don't take it. Here's the average monthly benefit. This is on the higher end. We can see the potential benefit we might get from Social Security. Building a retirement income stream. So this is the most important part, and this is what I talk about the most with clients. Social Security is important, but it's only one part of the income stream, right? So average monthly income from a $500,000 investment. We talked about this before. Money market and savings accounts. This can be a leg of your retirement stool, but we can see here, we're not getting a whole lot of interest from these type of accounts. 1-year CDs, the interest rates have been pretty low. Interest rates are going up, but we can see that we have a lot better alternatives out there. We look at bonds, right? We get a little bit more return on these. So these are different ways we can supplement the income, whether we're getting it monthly, quarterly, or annually. That's different for everybody. Their needs are different, but there's different tools out there to get us different types of income. And it really comes down to you. What your situation looks like is going to be different than someone else's. Maybe these money markets really are a big player in your retirement plan. Maybe they're not. For someone, maybe high yield bonds are a great idea. For someone, they might not be, right? So it's just important to know that there's different tools out there to give us different streams of income, or customize your situation so that you're not left in the dust. Now, what are systematic withdrawals? From portfolios, when we need to take from them, let's say we don't have the income that we need. right? And we need to start withdrawing from our retirement accounts to give us the income that we need. We can see a monthly withdrawal. This is kind of what it looks like. We're selling some shares every month or so to give us the income we need. Now, it's important to know when we're trying to maximize our nest egg, we're looking to avoid this ultimately. Now, we want to be able to take from funds from our retirement accounts. We want to be able to do the things we want to do in life, like travel, visit our grandkids or our kids. Those are all important parts of our life. And we want this money to be able to do that for us. But if we're able to take the principal and use it to receive income instead of drawing from it, we can avoid these situations. In those situations where we are in the account, where we want to draw from the money, this is a little bit what it looks like. We're going to sell little pieces of the account to let the rest of it continue to grow while still using it as an income source. This is another option for us as well. Turning retirement savings into retirement income. Income producing products, no distribution on original savings, and the income might fluctuate. If we do a systematic withdrawal plan for more of a portfolio type account, we can get a little bit more consistent income, but may distribute original savings, and it might be a little bit different because it's not fixed. So looking beyond the money, this is the most important part that's not number related. So level of happiness, this is what we call the midlife crisis. We see a lot of people when they get to their 45 and 55 ages that they start to get a little bit uncomfortable because we see that retirement's looming, and maybe we haven't done all that we can to reach our retirement goals, and we're starting to feel that pressure of, hey, this is something I really got to do. But we see it gets better, right? It's a very understandable thing to worry about your future, and there's no reason to be ashamed of not being in the position you need to be in for retirement, because a lot of people are in your shoes. Now, we see that when we get a little bit older, we're starting to take advantage of the things that we enjoy in life more because we are retired and we're not spending day and night working and taking care of family. Happiness factors in retirement, health, friendships, family. These are all things that we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of in retirement. It's tough to do these things if we're not financially stable and financially comfortable. And to be financially comfortable, we want those benefits. Being financially comfortable won't really mean a whole lot if we're not able to take advantage of doing these things in retirement. So whatever this looks like for you, whether it's family, friendships, health, maybe it's a hobby, right? Contributing to a cause, traveling, these are all things we want to be able to do. And it's really important to talk to a financial advisor ahead of time so that when you're in retirement or the year before retirement, you're not stressing out and thinking to myself, okay, I need to figure out who I'm going to talk to and how I'm going to make this work. Decade before you're in retirement, if you're able to take care of these three things, all these other options like traveling, contributing to a cause that you like, visiting family, starting a business, these all become possibilities, right? So, if you have questions about this at all, it's not something you should be ashamed of, and it's not a problem to attack it, even if you feel like you're attacking it a little bit late. Things accomplished by people age 65 and up. The Colonel Sanders started KFC. I like that one. But there's a lot of things you can do in retirement. It's not the end of your life. It might feel like it, and from an age standpoint, categorically, but we can still accomplish a lot of things. And so being financially stable puts us in a position to do those things. And I think that's even more of a reason to attack it early and to set the steps forward for you to make sure that you're receiving the income to accomplish these things. Retirement is wonderful if you have two essentials, much to live on and much to live for. I like that quote. And here's another quick list of the 7 things we need to do in retirement. Feel free to take a second if you wanted to write these things down. Again, this is going to be recorded, right, Terrelyn?
Absolutely. We're going to put that on our YouTube page in a couple of days. We have lots of other great webinars there too.
Excellent. All right. There's some disclosures here. Here's some information regarding some of the financial advisors we have working with us. There's some information regarding the branches we all cover as well. All right, well, I really appreciate you guys having me here to talk today, and I'm happy to answer any questions. You feel free to give me a quick call or send me an email if there's anything that comes up. I'm always happy to help.
We do have a couple of you questions on here, so we'll go over that. For those of you who want to go ahead and leave, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you got a lot of great information out of this. Again, we'll put the recording on our YouTube page in a couple of days. You'll also find past recordings of other webinars that we've done. We will be continuing our monthly webinar series starting in January. We do go dark in December. We have lots of great topics coming up, so make sure you monitor your email, monitor calcocu.org for those topics in 2023. Also, we're available for any questions, so go ahead and call your branch, call into our member service center, check our social media, check out our YouTube page. We also have a great financial education portal through calcocu.org/enrich. You can take a profile. They'll send you targeted articles and videos and information about credit, about budget, about retirement planning. It's a really great resource, absolutely free to everybody. Hope you learned something new and beneficial, and we thank you for joining us. We're going to get and answer some of these questions. So one of the things we had is, how do you balance time-related inflation and value of money over time when deciding that Social Security withdrawal age, versus talking about taking it early versus later?
Okay, so the question is, how do you balance deciding to take your Social Security early or later? So what I look at is the income. So some people like to work longer than they have to, whether it's part-time. If that's something that applies to you, it might make more sense to delay Social Security until we have to. But a lot of people, like we were talking about before, they're not able to keep working like they would like to. And in that case, they may have to take Social Security. So finding a balance, it really comes down to asking yourself, how long till I need this money, right? And how much am I going to need? What other sources of income can I draw from so that I can maximize this Social Security benefit? Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, and piggybacking on this one, we have a gentleman. I've heard it's better to wait until full retirement age. In what circumstances might it be better to start receiving it early?
That's a good question. So that really comes down to a personal, for example, I've given this example a couple times already. Let's try to give a different one. Let's say that you have a disability in the family that comes up and we need extra income, right? And let's say you're already doing everything you can. You've saved up in your 401k, you've done an IRA, you're still working, maybe your spouse is still working, you've done everything in your power and you still need more income. That could be a potential situation where it might make sense to receive that income. Now, it's really important before you do that we talk to a financial advisor, because there might be other options out there for income that you don't know about. And saying to us, like waving the white flag and saying, hey, I'm just going to start taking Social Security now, it might have better effects if you were to wait, right? So that's why it's important to talk to a professional about that before. Good question, though.
Great answer. A couple of questions from two different people kind of talking about the same thing. In a bear economy where both stocks and bonds are tanking, is it wise to invest in physical assets such as real estate? And what other types of account options are there for that other type of investment?
Those are great questions. So one thing that's really great about CalCoast, and I love to harp on this with my clients, I really do. I came from a really big bank that you might have heard of before or been in, and they had an investment arm very similar to how CalCoast Financial Services is placed in the CalCoast Credit Union branches. I love this CalCoast position because I am both an insurance agent and an investment advisor. It's not as common as you would think. And that gives us the ability to access this mid-range of products for times when, hey, we don't want to risk the principal. We don't want to put it in the stock market. Even though we need to grow it, the risk of losing a certain value of our account just isn't worth it. So for those clients, we say, okay, we have something called an annuity, where instead of making a loan to a bank and receiving interest like a CD, we take that money and we loan it to an insurance company instead. and they're able to pay us a little bit higher interest, and that value does not fluctuate as long as we hold it to maturity. So there's other things out there. That's just an example of one product that you can turn to in times where the market's not doing well, when we have bonds aren't doing well, cash isn't doing well. Real estate, while it's not exactly correlated to the stock market, I mean, it's not a perfect teeter-totter, but we can't guarantee that because stocks are going up, that real estate's going down and vice versa. It could all be going down at the same time, right? And that's when it's important to talk to a financial advisor about those middle of the range products, those principal protected products, to be able to provide another alley to get the income without risking your principal. There's a lot of downside. There's the flip sides to everything, right? If the market starts doing really well and we're stuck with an interest rate, we're not able to get the potential growth that we were in a stock market portfolio, right? Interest rates can change too. So that's another thing to think about. It's not perfect. There's a lot of options out there, and it really just depends on your personal situation, how long you're investing for, your risk tolerance, and what your goal is.
I have another question, which I think is really interesting. Do you recommend rental income property as a way to supplement income?
That's a great question. No, it's hard for me to recommend anything in general without knowing a little bit more specifically. Because for someone, right, that has the time and maybe they're savvy enough in the real estate market, it might make sense for them to take their savings and put it into something they understand. And that gives them an income flow that they can manage and that they know what to expect. Now, some people don't have time to manage one or two properties, right? Some people, they don't want to hire a property manager. That can be expensive. There's taxes that you pay on real estate that you don't necessarily pay every year in a retirement account if you were doing an investment in that type of an account. So it really depends. If you're more of a hands-on person, you can see the potential value in something like that, where it gives us income and still potentially could grow, right? There's investment products too, but a lot of times I see people lean towards the IRAs, the 401ks, just because they're easier. They're easier to manage. You put money in there, you set it to whatever investment you want, or you have an advisor that's taking care of the investments for you. You put the money in there, you meet with an advisor when you want to check up on your portfolio, and it's easy as that, right? Super easy. Versus real estate might take a lot of work. You might have to clean up that property every once in a while. The upkeep on those properties. I said property taxes already, but those are all reasons why you really want to list the pros and cons and also know yourself when you're talking to an advisor to figure out what might be best for you. That is a good question though.
I have another good question up here. How do I know if I'm a good candidate to put my assets into a living trust? That's definitely something that comes up in this last decade before we retire is, should we be creating a living trust for our retirement?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that definitely is going to be a more specific to that person when we talk about that. Trusts can typically keep things more organized. They take time to set up, and they might potentially be costly to set up, but they can protect a family after someone passes, and they have a lot of benefits, right? It's really easy with retirement accounts, and for us as advisors, it makes it really easy. We say to the client, hey, what's the plan here? If you were to pass, who is this money going to? And they say, okay, well, I want it to go 25% here, 75% here, 50-50, however you'd like it. And we're able to just upload the documentation onto that account. And when you pass, that money goes to that heir. And there's not any questions about it. Trusts can be a little bit more complicated. From what I understand, those type of trusts and wills can be brought to court and they can be debated. So that's one thing to think about with retirement accounts. You can put an account into a trust, right? But that's just way more of a complicated scenario that you'd really want to talk to an advisor about. Ultimately, it comes down to your personal situation and where the money is going to after you pass. I think that tells us a little bit more about whether a trust is appropriate or not.
Do you have a general guideline for what size of an estate should be looking at creating a trust?
Yes and no. Yeah, we want to help everybody. So you might be thinking to yourself, okay, I only have $40,000 for this trust account between all my IRA and this and that. And you might think to yourself, oh, if it's going to cost me X amount of dollars to set up this trust and to talk to an advisor, it might not seem worth it to that person, but it still might make sense, right? Even with the cost. So no, there's not necessarily a dollar amount. It really comes down to, hey, do I want to make sure that this is set in stone? And one way to do that even more efficiently is by naming beneficiaries on your retirement account.
Absolutely. Great answer. One last question, I think, in terms of clarity and being open, are you paid by Franklin Templeton or Cal Coast Credit Union?
That's a great question. So I work for 3 different companies, essentially, right? I work for PFG Advisors. They're a company that employs financial advisors, and they essentially place us in the Cal Coast branch. So I work for Cal Coast Financial Services, Priority Financial Group, and Securities America, who's our broker dealer, who we go through to do business. So Franklin Templeton doesn't pay me a salary. And I'm not sure exactly how to best explain this. Cal Coast and PFG Advisors come to an agreement on how I get paid from a salary standpoint. And if you're really asking how financial advisors get paid, I'm happy to send you information on that. There's a bunch of different ways financial advisors get paid. It depends on what type of account you open up. So that is a more detailed question. Just to kind of give you a quick rundown, you can pay a commission in a brokerage account. You can pay an advisory fee in an advisory account. Or you could essentially have an insurance agent put your funds in an insurance, a hybrid or insurance product, in which case the insurance company pays the fee for the advisor, not you. So those are kind of the 3 different ways I can make money. And I do get a salary as well.
I think one of the best things about Cal Coast is we are member service oriented. When you work for Cal Coast, we're really here to help you find the best position that you can with your finances. So you do get a free consultation with our financial advisors to kind of figure out what your goals are, what you want to accomplish. So if you want to go ahead, Wes, and show us how we can go in and send a referral in or a request for information. Another question, how do you find a trustworthy financial advisor? It's so scary out there. Yeah. I mean, I always recommend talking to 4 or 5 people before you actually make that decision to make sure you find someone that you're comfortable with, who resonates with you, who listens to you. What do you think about that?
That's perfect. Yeah, I would go and talk to a handful of different financial advisors. Going back to what I was saying before, when I was at a different institution and we only offered stock and bond accounts and that was it. Each advisor may offer different products. So what I would recommend when you talk to advisors is say, hey, can you tell me what products you typically work with? Because if you just start talking about your financial situation and getting to know that advisor, they're going to recommend what they have access to, right? And that makes it tough because you want to trust that the financial advisor is looking out for us. And this, I cannot harp on this enough. Main reason why I came to Cal Coast was the flexibility in options for clients. I don't have to second guess myself when I give a recommendation. I can say, okay, I have all the options available to me. Let's just fit them in the product that's best for them, right? And I can ask all the really tiny detailed questions and know that it matters and that I can use that data to come up with a product that's going to fit them the best. Versus, so going back, ask your financial advisor what products they work with, because you might go talk to a financial advisor and they only do insurance, right? Or they might only do stocks and bonds. So yes, it is important to talk to an advisor and make sure that you're with someone that you trust and talk to multiple different advisors. But I would highly recommend putting that into your consideration in what products that they can offer you, because that to me is little bit less talked about in the industry. And it's something that you can definitely think about when you're choosing an advisor.
I'd also recommend asking about the fees, because you might find someone from an external source who makes their income strictly commission based, and they do get fees in different ways. You might have someone who's making it up front, someone who's making it at the end. So looking at how they make their income and what the fees are for that, if there's any annual fee for meeting with them, those are all great questions asked too. So yeah, so on our website, he's right now showing you our website, calcosu.org, going to our investment and retirement, and here's how you go in if you want to schedule a session with one of our financial advisors. Just go check here and schedule that consultation.
Yep, so we'll go to the website. The best way to get to it is the checking and savings. And then if you just click on the retirement investments here, it'll bring you to this page. You can scroll down in this retirement planning. You can make an appointment here. You go to learn more, tell you a little bit about what we can do for you. So here's a list of the things that we can take care of. Everything from life insurance, trust and estate planning, long-term care, then the more typical common options like stocks, mutual bonds, IRAs. We do
service.
Yeah, full service. And then here's Sandra. I'll kind of give you guys a quick rundown of the team. We've got Sandra. She's been with us the longest. She's a certified retirement planning consultant. We've got Kyle Johnson. He's a accredited asset management specialist. And let's see here. There's me. Pretty bland. No specialty here, just quite yet. But here, if you guys want to contact us, our cell phone numbers are down here. You can also look at our insurance information. One thing I wanted to tack on to the last question, Carolyn, when trying to find an advisor that is trustworthy. So if you go here, or you can go to Google and type in broker check. FINRA is essentially the watchdog. You can go in here to this website. This is brokercheck.finra.org, and you can type in an advisor. So we'll go Sandra Torres. Let's see. You can look and see all the different Sandra Torreses here. Let's see, I'm not sure what Sandra's middle name is. Oh, here we go, Securities America, La Mesa, California. You can see her history here. And you can see other information like where her examinations she's passed. Sandra's got a lot of things that she's completed. She's a great example. You can also see what licenses they're registered in. So this is another way you can double check your advisor. You can see what other information and what disclosures they might have if they've had like certain type of complaints and things like that before. So this is another good place to check. Just thought I'd add this in there.